Hi, it's us. What's going on?
Yet
Satanic
again.
Study Hall,
Yet
and you
again.
are stuck with us for, I don't know, how long are we going to go today?
Hopefully like 5 minutes.
You got shit to do?
I gotta pee. I always have shit to do.
Welcome, everybody, to a new episode of Satanic Study Hall. And on this new episode, we are wrapping up a little project we've been working on. But before we get to that, thank you for being here. My name is Bill. I am a member of the Satanic Temple, and today I am joined by...
My name is Johnny Voorhees, and I am a member of the Satanic Temple as well.
My name is Veronica, the valedictorian, and I am strongly aligned with the 7 tenets.
My name is Father Al. Bless you, my children.
Welcome, Al. This is Al and Veronica and Johnny and me. We're developing a really good dynamic here.
I think we are too.
I'm fucking excited. And, you know, when Dennis gets out of in-school suspension, and yes, Dennis is still record-breaking in-school suspension.
Headmistress Olga can't get enough of them.
Yeah. And, you know, what did you say that he was mounted on in the basement? Because
Was it the Lucifer's cross?
I think it's a Lucifer's cross. I saw some pictures. So... more on that later. I'm sure Dennis will fill us in when everything kind of goes on.
He's in pain, but it's a good pain.
I hope it's a good pain.
It's the sexy pain.
I went by and laughed at him.
As you should.
Yeah.
I haven't been down there in a while.
I threw a cheeseburger at him. You let him off easy.
The janitor scares the shit out of me. He's always down there. I can't fuck with him. All right.
Mop the floor.
Groundskeeper Willie.
Mop, mop, mop all day long. Mop, mop, mop. Will I sing that song?
Yep.
Adam Sandler. We tried using a little bit of Sandler in our first couple episodes, but that mic feedback thing didn't go off so well
No,
for
it
our
didn't.
principal announcement.
No.
So we listened to our listeners and we switched it up. So what is Satanic Study Hall? There's a chance that there's some new listeners tuning into us today. So we will tell you that we are a podcast featuring a bunch of members of the Satanic Temple and just Satanists and degenerates. We call it a rotating bench. We've got a lot of people in and out of class, and that's the way we like it. New perspectives, new opinions, and just new unique fuckery. We dive into news and entertainment and talk about pop culture related stuff when it comes to Satanism. Satanism in news is a huge topic now, as you will learn later on in our episode when we talk a little bit about QAnon. QAnon's been everywhere, in presidential debates, all over the news, social media feeds. So we definitely have, we're going to dive into that a little bit after we tackle Grey Faction. But that's us. There's some bullshit banter that will go on. We go off on crazy tangents, as we like to remind our listeners. So don't expect this to be report out sessions. A lot of our coverage is some of it is in depth, some of it's high level, some of it's all over the place. But nonetheless, we like to have that nice little balance of education and just fun in general.
Yes, we definitely like to make it feel like you're in the room with us.
Yeah,
We're not a news broadcast.
Yeah,
we like
exactly.
to have a little bit of fun.
Well said.
Thank you.
So if you have any questions, comments, suggestions, or just want to interact with the cast, you can easily do that by emailing us at satanicstudyhall@gmail.com. You can also join our goat farm. And we're going to tell you more about that, but we have an interactive Facebook group that has really taken on a life of its own. We're so incredibly humbled by all the participation and content that's being added to our goat farm. But like I said, we'll expand on that a little bit more when we talk about our social media. We also have a Patreon with 3 levels for you to donate to if you are so inclined to. One is a $3.33 tier, one is $6.66, and the other is $20 a month at our VIP super fucking satanic level. We just picked up another one of them about a week ago. And every time I get that email, my head just shakes, and I immediately hit up our group chat and be like, look, how does this keep happening?
It's very humbling, everybody. Thank you very much.
It is. It's fantastic. So thank you for everybody that's a part of the Patreon journey. We're trying to keep it fresh and updated as much as we can. I think we can keep it up. We pumped out some really funny shit
Yeah, we have.
the last couple
You know,
of
if
posts.
people start donating more, we can finally all afford those ADHD meds and won't go off on all those tangents. I
Yeah,
mean,
that's true.
the episodes might be not as fun, but they'll be more tolerable.
Support our, medication.
Yes. I can itemize what our Patreon will go
For our
to.
various disorders.
Yes, various is the key word
We'll all
there.
get the psychiatric help we so desperately need.
Right, that too.
So we've been talking about a lot of stuff. We didn't do our Satanic Panic series consecutively. One, because if we did, I think about 20 to 30% of you would have been like, I can't do this. It's a lot of stuff to talk about. First, we started about Satanic Panic in the 80s in our first part. Talked about the McMartin trial, Michelle Remembers, Dungeons and Dragons, and just the overall initial panic that happened in the late 70s and early 80s. Episode 2, we talked about the Martinsville case and covered the West Memphis 3 in some pretty big detail. If you haven't checked that out yet, I strongly suggest doing so. We had a lot of fun doing that, but there's a lot of information in the West Memphis 3. And anybody that's been through anything like the West Memphis 3 is still relevant today. There were thousands and thousands of lives ruined, and we definitely tried to highlight that as best as we could. Here in part 3, we are tackling Gray Faction. So we're kind of going 80s, 90s to more modern day and how the Satanic Panic is still relevant in today's world. So we're going to dive into Gray Faction, talk about what that is, some of the stuff that they're doing, how long they've been around, and just really kind of highlight some of the really cool stuff that they're bringing to light and how they're really, trying to tear the walls of pseudoscience down. After that, I believe we have our first book review. Veronica, the valedictorian, will be debuting her book review segment.
Excellent.
And I'm fucking super excited. We even have a new little theme song to play for our listeners, and it's crazy relevant. Some of you that have been around the scene for a while might recognize a little bit of our intro, but that's the point. We try to have fun with it. And as we mentioned last week, we made some new friends over at Dark Art Depository. In case you didn't listen, Dark Art Depository makes some very, very cool occult and Satanist themed stuff. You can find them at darkartdepository.com. And let me just tell you, pretty much everybody here in the room has some of Dark Art's t-shirts and hoodies, and they are fantastic. I think we started out with Be Kind, Hail Satan, which is one of the coolest designs I thought on his website. So we figured we'd get that one as a group. And then right now I'm rocking the Ave Satanas short sleeve tee.
And right now I'm rocking the Hail Thyself short tee.
And I am rocking the Friendly Neighborhood Satanist tee.
And my t-shirt's actually in my mailbox at home. This is what I get for being the most recent addition to the podcast host crew here.
Which one'd you get?
I got the Be Kind, Hail Satan.
Oh, fantastic.
Nice.
Now, not only is Veronica's shirt Hail Thyself, I believe it's Baphomet on the back, right?
Yes, it does.
Yes?
Yes, it has the Baphomet logo. I love it. It's so simple and so comfortable and, awesome conversation starter. And I can also kind of just wear it around, like to work, and nobody suspects anything unless they ask me questions.
It's not
totally me.
overbearing.
It's totally me. I love it.
The whole anti-social network thing is fantastic. And we'll talk more about Baphomet in the very near future here at Satanic Study Hall. But back to Dark Art. So Dark Art has an incredible line of stuff. So they have t-shirts and bottoms and shoes, swimwear, not exactly appropriate, but for this time of year. But I mean, I'd rock some swimwear. Don't they do those polar plunges? Go down to like Dover and do one of those polar plunges and some satanic swimwear.
Hot tubs.
I can get down with that. Oh, there he is. I was wondering, he was late to class today.
Do you make goat swimsuits, Dark Arts?
Yes, hit us up and let us know if you can make goat apparel. Tiny Baphomet goat apparel. But more on that later. That's actually a really good idea. A clothing line for the fucking Baphonets.
Do we have the horny goat weed yet?
It's coming out.
Oh,
It's
you
coming.
see?
I
He's
keep leaving
excited.
it at my house. I'm hogging it all for myself. Ow.
You like the horny goat weed?
It's some good stuff.
Admit it. It's good stuff.
And I believe Dark Art Depository across all social media platforms, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, And Rhett is also in our goat farm. So any of our goaties that are listening to us, you can always just hit up in the group. We've been sharing a lot of his cool designs in the goat farm. So thank you, Dark Art Depository.
Keep up the great
Hail
work.
Rhett.
Hail
Rhett.
and Hail Dark Art Depository. Thank you all.
Yes.
So outside of getting these fucking shirts, let's do what we normally do and go around this little table and go around the room and see how everybody's doing. Veronica, how was your week?
Packed. To be honest, I don't remember much of it. I remember hiking at some point. I remember seeing Dickie Devil and the Deviants for the first time ever, and that was awesome. That's
Dickie Devil
probably
and
what
the
I remember
Deviants.
most. And no, I did go to a haunted house Sunday night, so that was also pretty cool. A little bit of changes, like they switched it up due to COVID procedure, but still had a lot of fun. I just need some sleep.
Yeah, it catches up to you. I've been doing all these the virtual headquarters and stuff, so I can totally relate. What about you, Father Al?
My weekend was fucking awesome. Dinner with a college buddy of mine Friday night. Saturday was awesome. I'm not sure if anyone in the Philly area has ever heard of the Philadelphia Oddities Market. Went out there, checked out some awesome stuff. Actually met a couple Satanists out there. Had about 30 or 40 vendors. It was packed.
Yeah, those pictures you posted in the goat farm, they were
Yeah.
awesome.
We did put up some cool
There's
pictures.
at least,
I
yeah.
was jealous.
Yeah, I actually got a little heart with Hail Thyself. Hey, Bill, you want to pop that out to show her?
Oh, yes, absolutely.
Yeah, I picked this up for our little podcast studio here. But it was great. I mean, I dropped, name dropped Satanic Study Hall. I'm going to get in
It's
touch
coming
with
right out
them
of the
all.
bag. You can hear it.
Yeah.
Oh, shit, just hit the mic.
Sometimes the audio equipment is just too good.
Heal yourself.
Oh, very cool.
Yeah, we got to put
It's
that
a
up on
little
the
gift
wall.
for all my favorite degenerates in the whole wide world.
If the teacher lets us put it up in our little corner here.
Oh
Yeah,
my
we'll,
God.
who's that from, by the way? I'm going to post a picture of it in the Go Farm and on our social media.
Our Dark Days.
Yeah, check them out. They've got a ton of really cool handmade shit. You had like these cleaned out like animal skulls. You had like creatures in formaldehyde jars. I mean, you had all these incredibly talented artists and designers and whatnot. And can't wait to get back out there next year. That was pretty much it. Just had to do some work, over the weekend. But other than that, just it's great. Things are starting to open up a little bit more. Actually get out to meet hang out with some friends more often and stuff. So
Yeah, I think now is a safe time. If you can safely get out and socialize safely within restrictions and following science, I do so because I'm a little nervous about this cold weather coming up.
Right.
I think you're going to see a lot more outdoor events, though. I think you're definitely going to see like more stuff outside, more
Good.
heated stuff. It's definitely people are going to want to get out there. The market's there.
Oh, and people are adapting for sure.
Totally. I mean, the restaurant right near me, they put up like plastic around their outdoor deck. It's like boom. Now you have indoor seating during the winter.
And the drive-in
And,
theaters that have popped up and stuff.
Not to nerd out, but Pennsylvania's hitting peak foliage, at least around our area soon, and more of like central and western Pennsylvania. I think it's already at peak foliage. So I went hiking this weekend. If you can get outside and just get some air with people you like at a safe distance, go out and enjoy it before it gets freezing and
Weird again. Let's get weird.
Oh boy.
I didn't do it in the
There's
normal
that
deep
word
break.
again.
I saved it. What about you, Johnny?
Let's get weird. Do we want to get weird?
Let's get weird.
Sure. Well, I mean, my weekend was pretty packed as well. My weekend wasn't as fun as your guys' was. Me and my wife had to do research on landlords and what our rights are as tenants because apparently our landlord is a scumbag and he doesn't want to try to help us out at all. So, I mean, that's what my weekend consisted of, other than watching the fucking Eagles lose again.
Weren't they ahead at one point?
I don't believe so. I think they were behind the whole game. They actually came back, but other than that, I mean, just this whole landlord thing has just got me all fucked up. But,
I'm sorry to hear that.
You'll be fine, man.
Yeah, but life's got to go on. I'm here. I'm happy to be here. We'll just see how this rolls out.
And you haven't gotten kicked out of class since episode 2.
And I love my wife very much for sticking by me.
I'm glad you said that because I make sure
She's in the room.
She's sitting next to both of us.
Lyle, get off her lap.
I just tapped him to make sure he said something about me.
Well, good. I'm sorry to hear that, but like I said, you'll persevere.
I hope so.
You'll be fine, man.
We will.
As a non-scumbag business professional, I can say, just hang in there, man.
Yes,
Father
Father
Al
Al
fine.
definitely give me some good advice, so we'll look into that.
Let's just say Father Al is very smart.
Yes, he
in
is.
A number of different business areas.
How about you there, Daddy-O?
Me, if you haven't been able to tell, I probably sound like I'm, congested as fuck, and I am, just being congested and fighting all that and trying not to be miserable, with the kids and whatnot.
Changes into the season. You got to love it.
Yep. But that was my biggest battle, was trying not to be miserable and take it out on people that, that didn't fucking deserve it.
Leave me alone.
That's right. A lot of naps, but what I do want to say is this allowed me to spend 2 evenings at the Satanic Temple virtual headquarters.
Yes, that's awesome.
Which you were telling us a lot about periodically all throughout the
Congratulations.
weekend.
Yes, it was fucking awesome. So, $13.33 got me in for both nights. And they're doing a whole week event too. I mean, this is going to air well after the holiday and everything too, but I definitely want to let anybody know that as they continue to do events, it is so worth it. Between the seminars and the workshops and the different rooms, I tell you, like, in between presentations, I got to go watch a live stream of bats, and then I could hop over to the aviary and watch owls in a live stream.
Holy shit.
And then I could go learn about goats. And then people were screen sharing like really funny old cartoons and Dungeons and Dragons and stuff in the bathroom. These different rooms, that you can go into, but
Sounds like a good time.
It does.
Jesus, I'm working late Friday nights, and I could have been doing that.
I mean, Lucian had a crazy cool seminar on Satanic Panic, and then I learned about absinthe and the Satanic Chef Adam. Wow, that guy is a fucking rock star. Like the stuff that he makes and just his demeanor and everything. Hail the Satanic Chef. I had a lot of fun, and not to mention with the Satanic Temple TV. I haven't had time to do it, but now he's got his own show on there as well. So there was just so much, and it was so well organized, and like really shows like how people have adapted to this current environment that we're in, not being able to have meetings, like, go to Salem and tour the temple or, have a conference. But, I think, between the 2 nights, there were well over, 200 participants.
Wow.
Like 100 or so each night. And just, there are some familiar faces. I got to know other people that I've chatted with from Baphomet movie nights, and like nothing bad to say, except, and I'm sure they've gotten this feedback, but they play a sound when somebody enters and exits a room. It's like this whooshing sound.
Whoosh.
Fucking annoying. Yeah, like just get rid of the sound, or no.
Now, was Lucian actually on this? Did you get to chat with him?
Well, he was in chat rooms and stuff, bouncing from room to room. The night he presented, like we were in the same room, but I didn't chat with him that night or anything. There was though, before I change the subject here, there was a really nice hashtag that came out of evening number 2. Well, it started on Friday night, but we were talking about Satanic Panic and the McMartin trials, and Chuck Norris came up. Now, if you've listened to our Satanic Panic Part 1, we brought up, the fact that Chuck Norris was identified by the children interviewed in the McMartin case, around like fucking witches and hot air balloons.
That was one of our tangents that we went off on.
And then there was Chuck Norris. So, and Chuck Norris is kind of a scumbag as it is. But to put it out there, hashtag prosecute Chuck Norris came out of
Chuck
this.
Norris.
And
I agree.
yeah, it ended up on Twitter and caught some steam, and got a lot of people like, what the fuck?
And every school I went to, my kept popping up. And they said, oh, man, ooh. And I said, I've got to find out who they are. So I finally tracked them down, and I went to their school. And I met the father, and so I asked them if I could them. And they said, very cordial. They said, of course. And I was a black belt in judo, so I thought I had some pretty good skills. Anyway, I got on the ground and it's like I'd never had a lesson in my life. He played with me. And then I worked out for a while, and then said, Chuck, let's you and I said, okay. So we got, and I got him down, and I mounted him. And he says, okay, Chuck, me. I'm going to you. He said, no, me. So I brought my hand back. That's the last thing I remember. Next thing I know, I'm waking up from being unconscious, my throat, I could hardly swallow. He says, "Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to do it so hard." But he says, "I want you to stay here." He says, "You got great potential. I can make you a great." And unfortunately, I was getting ready to do a movie and I couldn't stay there. But I went back to LA and I started training with in Los Angeles, and I started with the Machado brothers.
No, I don't do that. I don't wax my. And Steve was one of my students. He's the one that actually got me into the business. Yeah, when I retired as the world champion, he said, "Well, what are you going to do now?" And I said, "I don't know, just probably." And he said, "Well, have you ever thought about doing movies?" I go, "Steve, I've never done a high school play." But anyway, he kind of encouraged me to pursue it, and luckily I did. Oh yeah, he was tough. A real tough guy, yeah. When he first started, we started working out in about 2 months in the training. He just starting to learn his kicks and his punches. He says, "I want to I said, "Steve, you haven't really learned your techniques that well yet." And he said, I want to Yes, all right, if you want to So we get up there, and I send him flying across the room with a kick, But I tell you, he gets back up, and he says, "That was good, that's good." And he kept right on and I kept the daylights out of him, But I tell you, he got better and better, though.
Hail Satan!
But yeah, hashtag prosecute Chuck Norris. Let's keep that alive. If any of our listeners are want to have some fun, throw it out there on Twitter and
Put
tag
that shit
us
on
in
a
it.
sticker.
Yes, I really think we should. That's a bumper sticker or a T-shirt.
We need merch.
Satanic Study Hall merch is only a couple of months away. I promise you that. No, that was it. Well done. Hail everybody that was involved in making that happen. Good shit.
Yes.
So last time we talked about asking our listeners for some feedback on any Satan-friendly charities, whether local to us here in the Philadelphia area or nationwide. We asked that because while we know we can, type it into Google and look for charities, the few charities that are out there, we know that there's people that have connections or know somebody who knows somebody that might be able to shed some light on a possibility for an organization to receive some donations. So just as a reminder, if you have any ideas or nonprofit organizations or charities that you have in mind, please reach out to us, whether it's in an email, on the Goat Farm, any of our social media. Let us know. We'd be happy to review them and talk about them as a team. And right now, this is just an idea, but the quicker some of you get back to us with some ideas, the quicker we can really get the ball rolling on some of the really good ideas that we've been talking about. Now, we also mentioned too, and we are going to take advantage of this last point, is no, you don't always have to donate your money. You can donate your time as well, whether as an individual or a group. You can easily find a spot in your local community that needs some TLC, whether it's a park or a local highway or a street, or just a neighborhood that might be a little bit behind on aesthetics, if you know what I mean. And if you are involved with something like that already, or would like to get involved with anything locally with us here in the Philadelphia area, like I mentioned before, email us at satanicstudyhall@gmail.com or hit us up on any of our social media platforms. What do you guys think?
I think that's a great idea.
And we love to hear what our listeners are up to.
Yeah, 100%, especially now. I think I've said this before, but, in the middle of an election year and there's a pandemic going on and just a lot of bad feelings and bad juju going around. So, sorry.
Get outside and make a difference.
Get outside, period. We've all been stuck inside.
Exactly.
As long as you're safe and socially distanced, just
wear a mask.
Yeah, not to be cheesy, but, love each other, love the people in your community, love your environment.
Just like Jerry Springer, be good to yourselves and each other.
Hail Jerry Springer.
No.
Hail Jerry Springer.
Hail Jerry Springer.
No, I will not.
Now it's time to read the Devil's Dictionary.
Today's word, isn't quite a word, but it's a person. Meet Neil Brick. Neil Brick claims to believe that he was brainwashed to be an assassin for the Illuminati Freemasons. Neil Brick claims that as a part of his brainwashing by the Illuminati Masonic conspiracy, he was programmed to rape and kill without feeling. Neil Brick claims that he once murdered a man in an unreported incident in Europe. Neil Brick holds regular conferences wherein his delusional beliefs are propagated to mental health consumers by he and his co-conspiracists. At a recent conference in May 2016, Neil Brick expressed a concern that attendees could trigger mind control programming by touching their faces. Neil Brick imposed a prohibition against face touching and asked that people would sit on their hands. Keep in mind, this is a man who claims that his own mind control programming impels him to rape and kill. The implication is clear. Neil Brick continues to propagate debunked and disregarded narratives of concealed occult crimes from the height of the Satanic Panic. Neil Brick's propagation of delusional beliefs is a potential danger to mental health consumers under his care and poses a larger danger to the general mental health of the public. Neil Brick is a douche. Ave Satanas.
All right, and moving on from charity, to be honest with you guys, I'm not quite sure where we're going. Anybody have any ideas?
I have not a one, sir.
Going to hell.
Can you tell us a joke, Bill?
Ooh, yeah.
A joke?
Let's do joke time. We've never done that before.
Yeah, I can tell you a joke. If you guys want me to tell you a joke,
Yeah,
sure.
yeah.
All right, let me think. Thinking. All right, I'll start off with this one. Mathematics is the language of the devil. There are a lot of sins in doing it. I'm sorry.
All right, so
I don't get it.
Sins?
Hey, I got a joke.
Mathematics?
I got a joke for you.
Valedictorian, but I can't do math.
It's okay.
I got a joke for you.
What you got,
You want to hear a
Johnny?
musical one?
Yeah.
All right, I heard that if you play Nickelback's music backwards, you'll hear messages from the devil. But even worse, if you play their music forwards, you'll hear Nickelback.
And I don't want to hear Nickelback.
No, nobody wants to hear
I do
Nickelback.
not want to hear Nickelback. Oh, Lord.
I got another one for you here.
What you got?
I just got kicked out of church because I yelled "fuck the devil." I thought we hated this guy.
Do we hate that guy?
I don't know, do
You
we?
can't hate someone that doesn't exist.
True.
That was my joke. How about this? An old couple decides to play the devil's tangle once more, like their golden years. The woman asks in a shaky voice, "Talk dirty to me." And the old man said, "I shat myself." Wow.
What happens when the devil goes bald? There's hell to pay.
I'm not going to dignify that joke with a response.
Me neither.
And I got a good one for you. Who would win in a fight, Chuck Norris or the devil?
I don't know, Al.
Trick question. Chuck Norris is the devil.
Hashtag prosecute Chuck Norris.
Yes, hashtag.
All right, I got one. What would South Korea do if the devil asked them for a sacrifice?
I don't know. What?
They would give them their soul.
Oh.
What pickup line do you use on the devil?
Can we tell the one about the government?
I didn't give my punchline.
What's the difference between the government and the devil?
What?
You can say fucking no to the devil.
I didn't give a chance to give my to give my punchline before.
You never
What
give your punchline?
Yeah, what pickup line do you use on the devil? Did it hurt when you fell out of heaven?
Oh.
Wow. That was brilliant.
No, really. It was pretty bad, actually. All right, I got a particularly bad one here. What's the definition of a reverse exorcism?
Oh, no.
It's when you ask the devil to get the priest out of your little boy.
Oh.
Wow.
We don't even need a laugh track for that one.
No,
Oh, no.
we're all silent.
Yeah, right? The devil whispered in my ear, "You aren't good enough. You'll never amount to anything." I whispered back, "At least I didn't lose my golden fiddle to some hillbilly down in Georgia."
Harsh.
Crickets.
The devil ripped out my spine and ran away. At least I know he'll always have my back.
Womp.
Wah, wah, wah.
Wah, wah, wah.
Fuck you.
I got one just as bad. What do you call it when the devil takes your car? Repossessed.
Oh,
Where does the devil do his washing up?
no. In Helsinki.
Oh.
I actually know that one. That's the sad part.
Oh, wow. These are horrible. These are fucking horrible.
This is what you get for a free podcast.
What do you call a daredevil that does art?
What?
Easel Knievel.
That ending is great.
What is the devil's car?
What?
The Anti-Chrysler.
Oh, shit.
Yeah.
Very cute.
Years ago, the devil's lettuce was the term for marijuana. Now it's romaine.
Oh.
Ouch.
All right, I got a really bad one here. In a school club, I was talking about how every month I would perform a week-long satanic ritual involving blood sacrifices. Only the girls got it.
Wow.
Pretty bad.
Wow. Took him a second, yeah. Which number calls the devil faster than 666?
I don't know, Bill. What number calls the devil faster than 666?
Johnny, it's easy. You just say 10.
Oh, shit. What do you call a devil stealing corporate money? An embezzle bubbler.
I like that one.
That one was one of my favorites. God decided to take the devil to court. When Lucifer heard the news, he laughed and said, but
That's what he said.
I know, she warned me. When Lucifer heard the news, he laughed and said, where does this fool think he's going to find a lawyer?
Nice.
Wah, wah, wah.
Should we do a white man, black man, and Mexican joke?
That was funnier than any of the jokes that we just read through, Johnny.
It really was.
I mean, I have one, but it's a little long. But I'll try to remember it. Oh, Jesus.
Sorry. See, it keeps doing it. I can't.
That was perfect
You're the one
timing.
that picked that bit.
All right, I'm not doing it now. No. All right, Satan appeared before a small town congregation. Everyone started screaming and running for the door, trampling each other in an effort to get away. Soon everyone was gone except for this old guy, who he sat on a pew calmly. Satan walked up to him and said, "Don't you know who I am?" The man replied, "Yep, I sure do know who you are." Satan asked, "Aren't you going to run?" "Nope, sure ain't," said the man. Satan asked, "Why aren't you afraid of me?" The man replied, "I've been married to your sister for over 48 years.
That was actually pretty
wife
good.
Wife jokes.
That was a
Wife jokes.
pretty good one. I wonder if there's any satanic dad jokes out there.
Probably.
We'll have to do some digging.
Satanic dad jokes.
Hashtag prosecute Chuck Norris.
Hail Satan.
Are you a vegetarian? Do you have a distaste for Nazis and white supremacists? Are you fond of animals? Do you fear brown foods? Have you ever had an imaginary friend? Are you obsessed with numbers? Are you sometimes confused? Do you fear confined spaces, drowning, or, demons? Do you have a strong sense of social justice and victim advocacy? If you answered yes to any of these questions, you might have satanic ritual abuse. Individuals with satanic ritual abuse and related conditions like Illuminati mind control should consult a conspiracy therapist immediately. Side effects of conspiracy therapy include isolation from stabilizing influences such as friends and loved ones, paranoid delusions, the total destruction of your family, addiction to sedatives or hypnotics, sexual assault, and filicidal ideation.
Oh, I guess Belial has some of those things, huh?
Could it be?
Answered yes to all of them.
All of them.
Could it be satanic ritual abuse? It is time to dive into a very, very important topic that we've been wanting to cover for a while now, which is why we chose to end our Satanic Panic series with grave action and high-level coverage of some QAnon action. So, to preface this little journey that we're about to go into, I think it's important to let all of our listeners know, primarily we're going to be using graveaction.org for our material. We just opened up the segment with a video that is on graveaction.org A satirical video, of course. If you thought that was serious, you should probably rethink. You should probably rethink why you're listening to Satanic Study Hall.
Yes.
But nonetheless, that was a little bit of satire about something real serious. That video is available on grafeaction.org under their Could It Be Satanic Ritual Abuse, which is second to the bottom of their Conspiracy Therapist tab. I got a good laugh out of it, but at the same time, after diving so far into Satanic Panic and doing all the research we've been, I didn't laugh much.
No, I don't think I laughed at all until you did the Belial.
Yeah,
Not much to laugh about.
Until our
No,
little
there
goat
really
was
isn't.
proven susceptible
Yes.
to these crimes.
yes,
I think he was trying to break the tension a little bit.
absolutely.
Maybe that's just all it was.
It very well could be. Belial's unpredictable. He's fucking running around, biting my toes. You just don't know what's up with Belial. So right off the bat, so like I said, we're going off of grafeaction.org. We're going to throw in some of our own side research. We're going to keep this very high level for some of our listeners who might be relatively new to Satanism, the Satanic Temple, or be completely unfamiliar with what Grafe Action is. So we're going to split up some of these little frequently asked questions that we're looking at the website. And we're going to start with something very simple. Very first question on the frequently asked questions is, who are you? So, Grafe Action consists of a worldwide network of volunteers from a wide range of backgrounds, including mental health professionals, journalists, researchers, and others committed to fighting pseudoscience. Grafe Action's members include victims of conspiracy therapists, mental health professionals whose bizarre beliefs are transferred to their patients during therapy. What exactly does Grafe Action stand for? You want to tell us about that, Al?
Grafe Action is dedicated to opposing the use of harmful practices in the mental health field, especially recovered memory therapies, which are responsible for patients continuing to recover, in quotes, memories of satanic ritual abuse, alien abduction, CIA mind control, and reptilian extraterrestrials long after the scientific community has warned of the dangers of these techniques. They focus attention on these risks by exposing conspiracy therapists. This is a matter of delusional conspiracy theories being propagated to the mentally vulnerable in the context of sanctioned therapeutic care. Grafe Action also stand firmly against reparative or conversion therapies. Grafe Action opposes the use of these harmful therapies because they are dangerous for the patient, their family, their community, and society at large.
Are you anti-therapy?
Absolutely not. Everyone could benefit from therapy at some point in their life. In fact, just about everyone could benefit from therapy at any point in their life. However, this is contingent upon the therapist utilizing ethical and evidence-based practices rather than debunked conspiracists or outdated theories and techniques that cause harm to those who seek help. I should be clear, our focus is primarily on how mental health treatments affects patients. We view patients being treated by conspiracy therapists as victims in need of legitimate mental health care. We feel nothing but compassion for victims of real traumas and false memories alike, as well as for all individuals suffering from symptoms of mental illness.
Johnny, what is recovered memory therapy? Why does Grafe Action oppose it?
Recovered memory therapy is any attempt by a therapist to retrieve allegedly repressed memories hidden in the patient's subconscious. Multiple therapeutic techniques commonly employed during the search can result in the patient's mind producing convincing, detailed false memories, especially when the therapist, unintentionally or otherwise, steers the conversation towards the preferred narrative. When the therapist holds odd beliefs, their patients can recover memories of events as ridiculous as alien abductions. Methods such as hypnosis and guided imagery may have valid use in other contexts, but when employed by therapists seeking repressed memories, the results can be disastrous. Contrary to established mainstream science, these proponents allege the repressed memories are not subject to the ordinary processes of remembering, forgetting, and alternation over time. Instead, these memories are believed to remain crystal clear, locked in the sufferer's subconscious, while still producing anxiety and depression in the conscious mind. These most extreme childhood trauma cases, some therapists claim, could even cause the personality to splinter, and shards of personalities could be repressed too, in a condition initially called multiple personality disorder, and later renamed dissociative identity disorder. The purpose of recovered memory therapists is typically to discover the root cause of a patient's presenting psychological symptoms, such as anxiety or depression, by digging up supposed repressed traumas suffered by the patient. The proponents of recovered memory therapies argue that the true cause of their psychological affliction can be discovered. Only then can the healing begin, they claim. There, I'm done. Fuck off.
Now, what's the harm if some people believe in these practices? Although recovered memory therapies are deployed for the purpose of uncovering real memories of trauma repressed from a patient's conscious awareness, there exists no evidence that such a mechanism exists. Moreover, research has shown that the methods used in the course of recovered memory therapy can unintentionally create false memories in the patient. In other words, these practices can and have resulted in false allegations of horrendous crimes, including sexual abuse, torturous satanic rituals, infant sacrifice, and cannibalism. Now, Al, can you tell us about the relevance of this in today's world?
The Satanic Panic never really died. It just went underground. In fact, many licensed mental health professionals who helped ignite the Satanic Panic in the 1980s remain prominent figures on the fringe of the mental health field today. Many of them continue to promote the same conspiracy theories that the rest of society has long recognized as debunked. A Grey Faction investigation revealed how satanic cult conspiracy fears, aided by licensed mental health professionals, helped inspire a mother to kill her own 8-year-old son, for which she was sentenced to 18 years in prison in 2015. Mental health care consumers and the public at large deserve better than to have licensed professionals propagating harmful conspiracy theories in the name of therapeutic care.
Now, we are going to talk about that case.
We are going to talk about that case a little bit, yeah.
And Lucian actually has it pinned on his Twitter right now.
Yeah, it's one of the more recent and disturbing and, in my opinion, really important ones to go over. I actually didn't hear about it until I started my Grey Faction research. I remember being in college in 2015 and not even I heard that this had happened. You know,
It's just so tragic, too. I mean, an 8-year-old child.
Now, Veronica, is Grey Faction saying that child abuse never occurs?
Yeah, no. Grey Faction acknowledges the grim reality of child sexual abuse, as well as the deep and long-lasting psychological impact it can have on its victims. Our aim is to ensure that such victims find themselves in the care of competent professionals whose practice is rooted in scientific, evidence-based methodology. It is a common ploy of conspiracy theorists to insist that any skepticism directed toward their ludicrous claims constitutes denial of sexual abuse in general or is indicative of an agenda to protect perpetrators. In reality, it is out of concern for victims of abuse that Grey Faction fights against conspiracist delusions being imposed upon them during therapy. It is important to note that the dispute regarding the legitimacy of claims regarding the satanic cult conspiracy and or the legitimacy of recovered memory therapists can in no way be contextualized as a dispute between defenders of victims' rights and those who deny that abuse takes place. The critical examination of claims related to satanic ritual abuse or other highly implausible narratives is remarkably different from casting doubt upon stories of victims of horrific abuses that happen all too often in the real world. Indeed, pursuing imaginary cults detracts from the efforts to isolate and persecute real perpetrators.
Now, this is one of the things that me and you were just talking about, offline, off air, as far as really driving the point home that us as Satanists in our journey and Grey Faction is not saying by any means that the child abuse, the sexual abuse that we talked about in part 1 and part 2 of our series here didn't occur. That's a message and conversation when I talk about this with people that aren't Satanists, people that haven't put in the research, that just know the high level stuff. Well, what are you trying to say?
Right.
That it never
Some people
really
get
happened?
extremely defensive about it. And frankly, until recently, I might have even found myself being one of those people. I even with you, when we talked about it, was like, we did agree, just like you said, we got to drive home the point. We're not saying that this doesn't exist, because, especially in recent news with Epstein, with the Lolita Express, I mean, it's totally plausible that there are these kinds of cases and sex rings that are rampant in our world. It's just that when you put satanic at the head of it and chase a fake deity, I mean, you're wasting resources. You're wasting objective, expensive state resources that can go towards real credible investigations.
No, I absolutely agree, and there's going to be a reoccurring theme as we touch on QAnon later in the episode. That's that same concept of, all right, so you've got these people highlighting a certain issue, making it their focal point, putting it on satanic panic and ritual abuse and Satanists and Pizzagate and all that. They're taking real, tangible, fucked up cases and trauma that people have experienced and classifying it under this satanic umbrella all over again.
And wasting countless psychology resources to what? To brainwash children? I mean, we talked about the McMartin trial, but even in the McMartin trial, okay, that's now tons of kids that you've implanted with these false memories that we just went over with different methods. In the case of Jude Mira, the 8-year-old boy who was murdered by his mother, a woman who was seeking the care of some of these specialized psychiatrists, they had Jude, who was nonverbal autistic, just write stuff down, or at least try, or they'd write for him. And they'd just implement their own ideas of what he was trying to say. And these led to convincing his mother that he was under some kind of like demonic possession. And to end his suffering, she then decided to eventually, make a concoction of pills and force them down his throat. And now this child is dead, and the mother, who was clearly delusional or susceptible to becoming delusional to begin with, is in jail. And I never found out, frankly, what happened to these doctors.
Most of the time, it's nothing.
Yeah. Are licenses lost? Are you getting jail time, which in my opinion you should be getting?
That's why Grey Faction has 110% of my fucking support.
Mm-hmm.
What about ritual abuse, Johnny?
Because society at large looks back on the Satanic Panic with regret and shame, many who continue to propagate the debunked conspiracy theory have dropped the reference to the devil from the phrase satanic ritual abuse. Ritual abuse in the context should be understood as organized abuse perpetrated by religious groups or nebulous others or outsiders as part of a ritual. These groups are usually believed to be widespread and multi-generational. There are some sick-minded individuals in the world. Let me repeat that. There are some sick-minded individuals in the world.
Disgusting fucks.
Yes. And some have likely engaged in activities that could be arguably be defined as ritual abuse. These should not be confused with, nor may be used to justify the bizarre claims of the conspiracy theorists relating to ubiquitous, secretive, worldwide cults engaging in systematic abuses and murders. Ritual abuse should not be confused with clerical abuse. The indisputable sexual abuse of children perpetrated by trusted community members of recognized religious institutions. Many conspiracy theorists believe that the ritual abuse, by virtue of being so bizarre and horrific, serves the function of ensuring all memories associated with the event or events are repressed. Such beliefs make strange bedfellows of the likes of Alex Jones and David, is it Icke?
Ike.
Fuck that guy.
And dozens of state-licensed mental health professionals.
I like the reference strange bedfellows. Alex Jones, David Icke, fucking whack jobs.
Yeah, and bedfellow, I mean, a good word to describe kind of these, what would you call them? The, kind of like a guild of pseudoscience psychologists that all operate in, religious specialties and found memory, and just they have their own little specific niches of psychology.
One thing.
The biggest shame is that, in thinking about the ritual abuse versus the clerical abuse is that, you could see, during the heyday, the high point of the Satanic Panic was that, this got so much news coverage. These people were demonized by societies large. And yet, we're not really seeing that, that widespread, targeted hatred towards these clerical abusers, if that makes sense. You don't see them being, basically seen by societies, these scum, maybe locally, but not on a widespread national level. These people aren't being demonized for being, especially as priests, as ministers, and doing this in such a wide scale as I feel that they should be. And I'm sure a lot of other people do as well.
I mean, I would agree with that to a point. I think the clergy as a whole, I mean, you know, a lot of negative reps. I even know toward the end of my Catholic school education, there were priests that were actually professionally trained in being careful after, you know, the widespread scandal, because they can't cause another PR disaster with the church, even though it seems to keep happening. The reason I would sort of maybe insert what I'm about to say is that I don't even know too many people who are as educated on the Satanic Panic and on claims of ritual abuse as I know people. Just everybody seems very familiarized with clergy abuses at this point. But in terms of being educated on the Grey Faction, what they do and the kinds of claims they, you know, investigate themselves and work on disproving when there's no evidence, I don't know too many people in my everyday life who even know that these allegations and claims are still circulating. I mean, we know about it because we run in these circles and we've done a bunch of research on it at this point.
Right.
I even saw it personally, Satanism out a little bit in the first place to kind of check out what I was starting to hear amongst normal crowds, but it wasn't, you know, as deep as all of this. So I think the more attention is brought to debunked claims and, you know, the work that the Grey Faction is doing, I think we'll get to a point where the hatred of pseudoscience will reach the hatred of like abusive clergy that it's at in this point in our society.
And I really hope it does. And one thing that I found interesting when Johnny started out with that part was how they've dropped the reference to the devil from satanic ritual abuse to just ritual abuse. It's the same fucking thing.
Right. I was just going to say that.
yeah.
That drives me nuts. And kind of even taking a step further now, going back to our last episode, Hypocrisy, where Al really dove in and told us some crazy stories about his experiences and his school with everything that he went through with Father Charles and just those crazy fucked up stories and all the abuse that happened there. What frustrates me about this whole thing, and it's not going to stop me from supporting and trying to, you know, institute change, but it's similar, you know, the reference you made to, you know, the clergy and then to, you know, these fucking psychotherapists. They're protected classes. They're federally funded protected classes. Mm-hmm. These conspiracy therapists, and if you go to the greyfaction.org, you click the conspiracy theorists, there is a fucking huge list of people that are currently still practicing. And I haven't done the research, but I'm sure, and our listeners can correct me if I'm wrong, but if we did the research, how many of them are experts for the prosecution? Think about that.
Probably most of them.
I'm going to take that progress on myself, and I will randomly update our listeners at some point, but everybody on that list, I swear it's just under the fair assumption that most of them are going to be prosecutorial or fucking experts, like hands down. There's no other way around it. You're not going to find a defense attorney preaching satanic ritual abuse to get somebody out of a fucking crime outside of insanity plea.
Yeah, that's a really good point.
And that's the whole protected class thing really drives me crazy. I hope we can get past that and really get down to some hardcore, you know, fact-based driven accountability when it comes to this stuff.
In terms of like protected classes too, just on, you know, one more note about this, but the state who takes these cases on as if they're credible, you know, from the get-go without anything almost evidence-based, that's sort of, in my opinion, just a protected class too. I'm not saying that, you know, we shouldn't have trials or that, but I am saying, you know, the state of Arkansas, in my opinion, was kind of a protected class in that case. I mean, you know, you're going to tell the state, no, you shouldn't be, just for lack of evidence, maybe this should be, you know, dismissed, or something like the McMartin case, where the state hires archaeologists and that comes out of a tax budget, like a taxpayer budget, all these experts, like you're right, and the psychologists get paid. They have to dig in deep into the taxpayer pocket to pay, you know, experts like archaeologists to dig under a daycare and,
or Lawrence
and find
fucking
tunnels.
Pasder.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, I think that's a really good point.
Hashtag prosecute Chuck Norris.
So I do have one question.
Prosecute Chuck Norris. Go ahead, Al.
Maybe we'll get to this later on. Maybe I just haven't picked up on it just yet. But what is the motivation for these these therapists to actually pitch this, satanic ritual abuse to make these claims, to coerce these, children and spread these beliefs? I mean, is it just to make money? Is it just
I have two answers. One of them is profit and money. A lot of them have written books, again, niche-based, and if it blows up in the media, there's a case, like a convenient case that ends up getting in the media and going along with it. It'll blow up even more. It's great for book sales, as we've kind of seen with certain other characters that we've talked about. The other one, and again, you guys can give me your opinions, but from what I've read up, they are just people who do have their own convictions in the back of their mind. They don't separate it from their practice, and they've sort of set out on their career path to serve their ideology. A good example of this would be Shirley Phelps, the
or
Westboro.
Neil fucking Brick.
Yeah, Neil fucking Brick. Exactly, like Shirley Phelps, who is very indoctrinated in her father's religion, and then goes on to get a law degree and practice law in the areas that will benefit. What are they called? The Westboro Baptist Church.
It's not a bad thing that name slipped your head. That's actually a good thing. I wish I could forget their fucking name.
Well, sorry, I'm about to bring them up again.
I'm never going to forget their name after Lucian's pink mask. But
Oh, boy.
Attention staff and students. This is your principal with your daily update. The Satanic Study Hall podcast is not affiliated with any other podcast or organization. None. Zero. The views and opinions expressed on the podcast are ours and ours alone. Until we fix the kitchen and cafeteria, lunch continues to disappoint. Get ready for, SpaghettiOs. John Milton, or whatever you're calling yourself these days, sorry bro, ghost sucks. The Drama Club is sponsoring pictures with Satan Claus or Santa Claus, or which one is it? Either way, come dressed for both Friday at 4. And that's all for today's announcements. Hail Satan.
So I guess the question is, do you believe, in your opinion, that these therapists actually really do believe this stuff?
I think it's on a case-by-case basis, but I'd say if there's this many of them, and I wasn't aware until very, very recently, after meeting you guys, there's more of them than not. I think, half of them have to be in it for the profit, half of them have to be in it for convictions, and then maybe the rest that remain are in it for whatever else that
notoriety?
Maybe, yeah.
Well, I think that's interesting with the notoriety piece. Now you said case by case basis, and I think we can take that a step further and sectionalize like the country per se. You know what I mean? You got the crazy religious driven deep south in certain parts of the country or whatnot. But what also comes into play with the question you asked, Al, is there's kind of already these pre-written recipes for success when it comes to SRA in the psychotherapy field. You look at people like, Lawrence Pastor, who made a career out of just propagating bullshit and ruining people's lives to line his pocket and then marry his fucking, subject and client. But again, I think not only there's a recipe for success because it's worked. Countless, therapists have followed this design, this, almost manual to a T and found great fucking undeserved success. But just like Veronica said too, there's got to be a hand. I don't fucking think Neil Brick believes in anything that comes out of his goddamn mouth. Right. But there've got to be a handful that, just like I said, stand by their convictions, that, are deep seated in their beliefs and truly believe that, this really is the underlying factor. And, it fucking must suck to be them. But can you blame them? You most certainly can fucking blame them. But that's why we're doing what we're doing.
And an even scarier idea than that is, an individual that is doing this, and, like we touched upon in West Memphis, but someone who could potentially be out there just for the power of it, just for like, I have spent this much time getting my degree, opening my practice, and now I get to tell people what they think and what they remember. And I mean, I don't doubt at all that there are people with those kinds of personality disorders who have gotten into the field of psychology.
And a movie deal and a book deal.
Yeah, I mean,
And a couple of those.
Take the psychology degree out of it. Take Ted Gunderson. He's fucking FBI agent.
That's true, right.
And I think right on the lines of what you were saying about power, I think that primarily drove that son of a bitch.
Yeah, I mean, this made me think of two things real quick. First of all, it's not to go off on a tangent or anything, but, it kind of makes me think, okay, well, like these televangelists who, live in these gigantic mansions.
That's a great example. That's an awesome example.
Do they believe, do they actually believe the stuff that they're selling to people? Like, are they really trying to send the good, the good word of God or whatever to all these people and still live in these mansions? It's like, it's like you wonder. It's like, okay, you have like, these people who are, of the, of faith, and they get all these people and get all this money from. Like, how many people actually believe what they're preaching versus how many who are like, I'm just going to use this to make a buck. And the other thing I want to mention, which I know we talked about a little bit before we started recording, was the fact that, it might seem, to some people crazy, like, okay, how could you possibly as a parent, think that your child went through this? And I think that, me personally, I think the only justification to give to these parents and these people that actually believe this exists is we have, as people, have a tendency to trust and believe those in authority, those with more knowledge, experience, power than we do. I mean, if you go to your doctor and say this hurts and they tell you it's because of this, I mean, yeah, sometimes you're going to be more skeptical and, seek a second opinion or something like that. If you go to your auto mechanic, if you go to your priest with an issue, you're generally going to believe that not only they're not only more knowledgeable than you, but they actually, are looking out for your best interest. They're actually telling you advice to help you instead of just trying to make a buck. Like if you go to a doctor and they say you need surgery, it's scary to think, well, are they offering you surgery because it's in your best interest and they're smart enough to tell you that's the best option, or because they want to make money off of the surgery as opposed to another thing? Like you go to these psychologists and psychiatrists who are like, they want to give you pills because you've got, say you have ADHD. Is it going to be because of you actually have ADHD or whatever? That's just a random example, but anything where they tell you, okay, well, just take these pills. They write a script, send you a bill, moved on to the next patient, instead of actually trying to understand and fix the underlying problem.
I agree.
Does that make sense?
Oh yeah, absolutely. And then take the never-ending referral network in just the medical profession alone. Before, you got to go see my friend over in orthopedics. And then after orthopedics, you got to go see my friend in cardiac care.
And then you have to go get a prescription. And then you have to refill that prescription.
Yes. And we won't see you until we've had a couple rounds of that prescription in you for us to be able to gauge effectiveness. But then after that, you got to go see a specialist to see if it's conflicting with your other medications. I agree. And the medical field and the psychotherapy field is so clouded with bullshit. It's hard, just like you said, to really pinpoint and get answers to these really good questions.
I think it all boils down to everyone out there as human beings has an agenda one way or the other, and we only have to trust that the people that we trust have our best interest at heart and are doing what is best for us. And that's, it's kind of counterintuitive to think, okay, well, this person, who's a professional is going to say, okay, you're going to tell me to do something and I'm going to go question them because obviously they're smarter and whatever. But it's scary when you can't do that, or at least, you're trained to think, oh, I shouldn't be, questioning this person. They're an expert. They know what they're talking about. I can't tell if they're right or wrong.
It's some really good fucking discussion already. Mm-hmm. Like, I'm really digging this. This is awesome. And again, this might be a little different than the usual, mix of fuckery and serious topics. But this is by design. Grey Faction needs attention. It needs advocacy, and it needs your help. Tell a friend about Grey Faction. Spend some time, grab a cup of coffee, smoke a joint, grab a fucking beer, glass of wine. Go to the website, scroll, read. You're going to get lost. I got lost. I've been on this website for countless hours, and I still get lost reading the same shit because it captivates and pisses me off.
And it's pretty terrifying, in my opinion, to read so many accounts from different people who haven't known each other, but who claim to have gone through very similar things. There's very, very similar details in all of their accounts. They're taken to a very rural place, and adults that have easy access to them are able to just various, I'm not even going to get into descriptions because it's way too gory, but it's just torture and it's murder. And, you know, seeing other kids get murdered, sometimes it's not even always like an adult that has easy access to you that's keeping his Luciferian origins a secret.
So now we're going to dive in a little bit to find out who is promoting these techniques and conspiracy theories. So greyfaction.org says the nucleus of this network of licensed mental health professionals who continue to propagate conspiracy theories is what I like to call the evil empire, the International Society for the Study of Trauma and Dissociation. I think I'm fucking saying that word wrong. I'm not re-recording that. They're the ISSTD. We'll leave it at that.
STD.
Yeah.
They put the STD in ISSTD.
Wow.
That's a good one.
Yo, Evan, if you're listening to this, we got to do something with that comment. We got to, hit me up. Well done, Al. Well fucking done.
I come out with a good one every now and again, usually like one per episode.
So the ISSTD puts the STD in ISSTD. But the ISSTD holds conferences and seminars throughout the year, attendees of which may receive American Psychological Association approved continuing education units, which are required for licensure renewal for listening to speakers spread pseudoscience and conspiracism. Now,
that is bullshit.
And that is terrifying. I mean, look at that, just that name, the study of trauma and disassociation. Okay, they're two very real things. And yet, this is, Jesus, it's almost like comedic. If you read Roald Dahl's The Witches, these witches that, you know, conspire, and it's goofy, but it's a kid's book, but they conspire to murder children. They do it under the guise of being the Association Against Child Abuse or some like very long, intricate name like that. And this sounds exactly like that. I mean, that's
sounds a little bit like
trauma
QAnon
and
too.
disassociation, like really serious psychological things that people invest a lot of money to go to doctors for. And this sounds like a very official society, and yet they're holding conferences on...
Oh, they're very official, and it's very similar to QAnon. They're trying to help a demographic under the guise of that. Meanwhile, just fucking spewing bullshit and fuckery, and just grasping onto to people's fear-mongering bullshit. So what does mainstream science say about memory and trauma? Memory for traumatic events, particularly in those who suffer from PTSD, is intrusive and persistent. From flashbacks to nightmares to sensory triggers, PTSD patients might wish they could forget or repress memories of the traumatic events that caused them so much suffering. Moreover, the more severe the trauma, the more severe the symptoms. Yet not all traumatic events result in PTSD. In response to the same trauma, some people may develop PTSD and some may not. Those who do not develop PTSD may forget that the traumatic event occurred for days, weeks, or even years at a time. This is normal forgetting followed by spontaneous recall, not repression. Now, those who believe that a trauma can be so severe that one represses all memory for the event have presented no convincing evidence to support their position. The overall scientific consensus that trauma severity and memory for the trauma share a positive linear relationship. In other words, the more severe the trauma, the less we are able to forget it. The more severe the trauma, the less we are able to forget it. Has yet to be overturned. Even if this scientific consensus were to be convincingly disputed, the fact would remain that recovered memory therapies can instill false memories. In other words, if it were discovered that people can repress memories of trauma as distinguished from normal forgetting and later recover them, this does not change the fact that recovered memory therapies can result in the implantation of dangerous and harmful false memories. Therefore, if our scientific understanding of trauma and memory evolves to accommodate the potential for memories of severe trauma to be repressed, and we believe this to be profoundly unlikely given the current body of evidence, recovered memory therapies will remain, in Greyfaction's opinion, a form of psychiatric malpractice.
100%.
Wow.
Now, one thing the ISSTD, I just want to call them the STD now. I very well may. But for consistency purposes, one thing the ISSTD does is they dwell on MPD and DID. Now, the modern tide of academic writing on MPD begins around 1980. The 80s saw a wealth of literature presenting the condition in very simplistic terms. Therein, a case is made that even a single traumatic event in childhood could be so damaging to the psyche as to fracture it into pieces or alters that are literal personalities within the individual. These personalities were reported to have their own life histories and accompanying memories, proclivities, tastes, allergies, and even eye colors. Memory, in particular, has been regarded as central to the condition ever since DSM-3R, 1987. and memory recovery and processing was and remains the central component of treatment. Moving forward, now, due to the catastrophic fallout from the Satanic Panic, MPD, multiple personality disorder, has been the subject of controversy within the mental health community as well as in popular circles. Accordingly, the academic literature on MPD has evolved over the last 3 decades. Some of this was a little more than obfuscation, intended to stem the tide.
The Devil's Dictionary.
Yo, beautiful. So we're going to do obfuscation. My son's going to be so fucking pissed when I put that in front of him. What the fuck, Dad?
What did I do?
So some of this was a little more than obfuscation, intended to stem the tide of pushback. In developmental models of DID, for example, the condition is seen as sort of a coping mechanism for traumatic episodes that are part of an extended pattern of both trauma and love and support. In effect, an alter state here might not be dissimilar from a sort of more durable 1,000-yard stare common in battle-induced PTSD cases. It would be a stretch to call this sort of state even a metaphorical personality, even if it had some behavioral components, rocking back and forth, etc., that were unique to it. It is a very far cry from the literal alters of the earlier writing. Now, there's a couple other paragraphs on there, but real quick, I want to jump into Sybil. If you are not familiar with Sybil, Sybil started out as a book.
Yep.
It evolved into a feature film
starring Sally Fields.
Sally Fields. And Sybil outlines a woman who claimed to have what was upwards of 16 different personalities.
I believe so, yeah.
Unreal. We might, depending upon the flow of the episode, dive into Sybil a little more, but side note for our listeners, if you know nothing about Sybil, dive in. And after you research Sybil, read the book Sybil Exposed. That's really going to put some shit into perspective, and it's all going to kind of come around like a circle and make a lot more sense as you progress in your education of gray faction, pseudoscience, and everything that we're trying to dive into today.
And that'll help you. I mean, if you do it in that order, read the book and then see the film if you want. I actually started out through a very good mutual friend of ours, seeing the film and not knowing everything there was to know about that case. And then me and her had a really intricate talk about it because she's studying it right now in school. And wow, it's mind-blowing. And just another example of how multiple personality disorder has been, sort of portrayed in feature films and in the media, and giving a lot of people a lot of false ideas about what it is and how the diagnosis is still misused today.
Even in modern day movies, the first movie that comes to mind for me is Split, filmed right here in Philadelphia. Mm-hmm. Creepy fucking movie.
Has anyone seen United States of Terror?
No.
That's that was kind of dealing with multiple personality disorder, but they handled it, I would say, intelligently. They took it seriously, like the main character had it. It was Toni Collette. I'm
going to have to watch that. United States of Terror?
Yeah, look up United States of Terror.
Is it on like a certain streaming service?
It was one of like Showtime or something. If you want to look it up real quick.
Oh, it's on that Christian one, Pure Flix, right?
No.
You said that's so no, it's not. We talked about Pure Flix a little bit last time. Ooh, Veronica almost spilt over her chocolate milk.
Jesus. Is it time
I
for
spilled
a break?
over everybody's chocolate milk.
Is it time for a break?
I think she's saying it's time for a break.
I think it might be time for a break, but...
Do we want to power through? We only have like 35 minutes left.
We got to get to the Devil's Dictionary at some point, but we're going to say, we'll end this FAQ section on this. Now, it says, what should I do if a loved one is harmed by these practices? Who wants to take that one?
I'll take it. Gray Faction is dedicated to exposing the mental health professionals that utilize pseudoscientific and harmful practices, and the state licensing boards and other organizations that enable them. Gray Faction is interested in hearing from individuals with loved ones or who have themselves fallen victim to these practices as a means of spreading awareness of the ongoing conspiracy culture within corners of the mental health field, and or to look into the therapist allegedly engaging in these practices. That said, Gray Faction is not equipped to offer hands-on support to individuals who are currently falling victim to abusive therapy. However, if you get in contact with Gray Faction, they may be able to point you in the right direction.
And we will provide many means and many ways to contact Grey Faction, whether it be directly through their website, email, or social media. With that being said, Johnny, I'm going to warn you, do not fucking take the hall pass for me because I really got to piss. We're going to take a little bathroom break. Belial's got to go too. We'll be right back.
Hello there. Do you have moments doubting your self-worth? Do you feel isolated and often rejected? Didn't get that promotion or better paying job? Or do you just need an ear to bend? Then Satanic Study Hall proudly brings to you Johnny Voorhees, life coach.
Wait. What?
That's right. Satanic Study Hall's own Johnny Voorhees will answer your questions and give you the advice that you need.
I didn't agree to this. I mean...
This is what you get for not reviewing Ghost, motherfucker. Now do it or feel the wrath of my vengeance.
All right. I'll do it. I'm gonna be such a dick about it, fuckhead.
What was that?
I said, lucky me.
Read the letters already.
God damn, you people don't fuck around. I mean, you already have letters? Alright. Let's see what we got here. Dear Johnny Voorhees, I feel like my wife is cheating on me and spending nights as a prostitute. What should I do? How am I supposed to answer this? I don't know. Try to be your pimp? Gee. Alright. Next. Dear Johnny Voorhees, no matter how hard I try and what I do, I always feel like I'm getting ignored. Next. Dear Johnny Voorhees, I have an itching and burning sensation coming from my nether region. I have included pictures. Ugh! Jesus.
That's Johnny Voorhees, life coach. Coming soon to Satanic Study Hall.
All right, so going back to greyfaction.org, we're just going to read their mission. Grey Faction is an educational and advocacy organization whose mission is to protect mental health patients and their families from dangerous pseudoscience and discredited therapies, particularly in the area of so-called repressed memories. Grey Faction believes patients deserve to be treated using methods based on the best available science, directly in line with our tenets, and with a spirit of compassion. Debunked ideas, techniques with a long record of inducing harm, and beliefs unsupported by evidence have no place in therapy. No place in therapy. Grey Faction seeks to raise awareness of practices aimed at recovering repressed memories and the potential dangers of their use. They look to draw attention to influential practitioners who champion these techniques and beliefs, educate the general public on how to be better consumers of mental health care, especially as related to repressed memories, provide an index of both academic and popular materials related to repressed memory techniques, oppose governmental support and subsidy for such practices, alert professional organizations to pseudoscientific advocacy and promotion, to urge appropriate authorities to establish and enforce standards of care and professional ethics to effectively ban the use of such practices, and finally, to encourage institutions and organizations that uncritically teach such techniques to discontinue or revise their approach. Any commentary on that? What you guys got to say? What are your thoughts on the mission statement?
I'm really happy. Up until, I met you guys, I kind of started my journey looking into this stuff, and I wasn't even until I met various people in our circle aware that there was a group kind of fronted by satanic organizers that looked into this and, exposes these doctors who, to my knowledge, not all of them are getting their licenses revoked. They're not getting jail time, as I already said. And for not a cult necessarily, but a group, like a national collection of these people to be just pushing these ideas with Satan at the forefront. Some of the things you'll see are absolutely insane. And the Grey Faction has a great amount of resources, including, and they're sad, just letting everybody know ahead of time, because I dove into them, but video accounts that people who have these claims are putting up willingly, like through YouTube or whatever video platform they're making them on. And just, it's sad to see, because you're looking at them and you're like, what doctors have these people gone to? Like, how mentally ill? And now this, if they are mentally ill, it's on display.
Yep.
With nobody helping them, nobody saying no. People in the comments, frankly, if you look at these videos, people kind of egging them on. If they're Christians, they have other Christians in the comments going, yes, speak out against the devil and speak out
Praise
against
Jesus.
Like,
yeah.
So I am really happy this existed. It was kind of one of the best things for me personally, meeting all of you, and finding out that there was a group dedicated to at least providing a counter voice to what's going on.
Most definitely.
Veronica, it was a pleasure to meet you too.
Yes, it was.
I'm glad your curiosity and valedictorianness brought you.
I'm just
Leads me down-
jealous. I'm just
leads
jealous
me-
how smart you are.
Leads me down these kind of rabbit holes. I wouldn't call Alice very smart.
You keep skewing the fucking
trips
curve.
and falls down holes.
Now, speaking of rabbit holes, now, I think Veronica's starting to relate to some of the things that Dennis was experiencing when he was really diving in deep to West Memphis 3 and just Satanic Panic in the 80s. It is fucked. You can really get enveloped into these cases and the details and the emotions that they invoke within you, especially if you're even remotely interested in the subject. So I completely relate. I've been down many a rabbit hole in my satanic journey, and I don't think they're going to stop. Insomnia has crept in the more hungry I get to learn. And every day I'm on Twitter, or I'm just researching in general, or, as my network grows on Twitter and I follow other smart, driven, educational people with viewpoints and perspectives outside of my own, I hear, I got to check this out. I got to listen to this podcast. I got to listen to this podcast. I fucking like 30 podcasts to listen to. Literally, not just different podcasts, but podcast episodes I've written down that I have not even gotten to yet, on top of all the research for what we have going on here in Study Hall.
Yeah.
The only other thing I'd add about the mission is just to anyone out there who has any type of trauma in their life or is seeking any type of help, two things. First of all, if someone tells you in a professional capacity something that you know not to be true, then, that's a huge red flag. Seek out a second opinion, seek out alternative. I'm not saying like alternative medicine or something like that, but at least another credible professional outside of that individual's practice to actually, give you their own, unbiased opinion. And the
It's
other
okay
thing
to
is,
get second, third, fourth, fifth, 10th opinions.
well,
It's okay.
Healthcare in this country is expensive. So, I don't know about 10 opinions, but maybe at least 2 or 3 that
Or if
maybe
you
sound
feel
more
in
rational.
any way that, a psychiatrist, not even just a psychiatrist, but a doctor, you trust and that you've seen for a long time, and you have, for whatever reason, second thoughts, consult friends, consult family, consult other resources.
And the other thing I
do
was
your
gonna-
own research.
The other thing I was going to mention is, if someone tells you, and maybe this is just me being an atheist and a Satanist and whatever you want to call it, but if anyone ever tells you, trust in God, believe in God, whether it's a professional capacity or anyone in your family or friends, it's horseshit. If you need help, you need to get help. You can't, just wish it away or will it away or think there's some higher power. If you want to believe whatever you want to believe, obviously in the Satanic Temple, we respect people's rights to, practice what they want, as long as they respect our right to practice what we want. But at the end of the day, you have to think, problems aren't just going to go away. They aren't just going to magically, with the snap of a finger,
pray them away.
You
So wait
can't
a minute.
pray them away. Exactly.
Wait a
You
minute.
need to get.
You're telling me that those 10 prayers that I sent out on Facebook to be rich isn't true?
No, you're
That joke didn't
sitting
work.
here with us, aren't you?
That
That's the
joke
answer to the
didn't work.
question.
You're still forwarding those fucking email chains, Johnny.
Never mind.
That's how you get viruses.
Continue, Al. The joke didn't work.
No, it didn't.
I was going to look at you. I was going to.
Fuck you!
I'm not saying it.
I don't have the ring
Stay out
bell.
of this valedictorian. You don't want to get involved in this shit.
Yeah,
I'll
that's
see you in
true.
the playground in 5 minutes, asshole.
Okay.
Can't.
Don't do it on the playground.
Can't jeopardize my pristine reputation.
Next week on Satanic Study Hall, it's going to be Bill and Veronica. Those two will be in the nurse's office
We're dead.
because we have recess before Study Hall.
I
No,
haven't met our
seriously.
nurses. I'm concerned. Number one, are they conspiracy therapists? Number two, are they hot? I'm just saying.
Yeah, we need to check if the school psychologist is a conspiracy therapist.
And hot.
Was she vetted? I want to know.
Well, Principal Pan vets our staff. So, Johnny, seriously though, take your sip. I want to get back to what you were saying because I think that joke was high level, apparently. But what were you going to say?
No, I just think it's ridiculous when I see that on Facebook. And I see it and people actually believe it. They actually believe that if you send 10 prayers to somebody that you're going to be rich, or you're going to be cured of this disease, or a family member is going to win a car, or you're going to win this big house or something like that. I just think that people take it 100% serious, and it's ridiculous to see it.
On the flip side of that, what I love is when you see those, like the picture of Jesus sitting in front of his computer.
yeah.
It's like, oh, what a shame. Like, Timmy didn't get 10 more likes. Now I won't cure his cancer.
Yeah. I love them. I make sure I don't even use the heart emoji anymore. I use the care emoji.
I love the care emoji. I'm waiting for them to be like the 10 more default ones, like the angsty, moody emoji. I want that one.
Now, we are going to have to talk to Principal Pan to see if our school nurses and our psychologists in the school are being vetted properly, because it's a fantastic point. But what exactly is a conspiracy therapist? Now, a conspiracy therapist is a mental health professional who transfers, intentionally or otherwise, their own beliefs in bizarre and unsubstantiated phenomena to their patients via false memories or the reinforcement of patients' existing delusions. The false memories they sometimes instill in their patients can be extreme, bizarre, and literally impossible, making them excellent examples of how dangerous the search for recovered memories can be to patients. Now, after all, if these techniques can convince someone they've been abducted by extraterrestrials, how much easier would it be to induce false memories of a much more ordinary, although no less devastating phenomena? Now, I'm just going to let the three of you, my fellow degenerates here in class, pick and choose some of these quotes, but it says, how bizarre are the ideas that some of these therapists promote? We're going to read you some direct quotes from the website here that come from mental health professionals currently in practice. Let's go around the room. Al, you want to pick one and just read and tell us who said that bullshit?
All right, here's a gem from Sandra Fecht. People are impregnated by these reptilians in a laboratory-type environment, whether it's ETs or on a military base, or underground. I've definitely heard a lot of those stories. And yes, those uhs were actually in this comment.
In abusive rituals, witchcraft, not Wicca, abusers seek to attack evil entities, spirits of abusers, and demons to disassociated identities to harass and control victims for their entire lives. Curses, hexes, vexes, and spells are used to attempt to inflict physical and psychological harm. Ellen Lachter, just so everybody's reference, is the either first or second psychologist that Gigi Jordan, Jude Mira's mother, who later murdered her son. This was one of the psychologists that she sought out.
The Illuminati meet every 28 years for a whole year, during which Satan appears and tells them what he wants done in the next 28 years. Gene Reisman.
Oh, it's a 28-year cycle?
Yeah.
I have not come across the 28-year cycle in any of my research. I'm so glad she educated me. What was her name?
Gene Reisman.
Yeah, fuck her too.
Yeah, fuck her.
I'm going to choose Neil Brick.
Boo.
Somebody had to.
Yes, Neil Brick says, I have one memory of killing someone in Eastern Europe. It felt like that part of the world. He was sort of asleep, and he knew this would happen. It must have been in the late 60s by the way he looked. He was some sort of up-and-coming political person the CIA, Illuminati didn't want in power. And that was Neil Brick, who is just a huge fan of Grey Faction, mind you.
You know, I got drunk in a bar in Eastern Europe one time, and I think I killed someone too. Think it could be related?
You and Neil should get together and compare notes.
I don't think so. I
only did that once, Al. I feel like
Way
I did
too
it.
many
I feel like I did it a few times. You know, that happened.
You're a troublemaker, aren't you?
Now, if you want to get more involved with Grey Faction and follow them on social media, I suggest try joining their Facebook group. One of their entry questions is, are you Neil Brick? It really is.
Bill, I was so confused while trying to join that group.
You didn't know how to answer it, did you?
I said no, and I have no idea who that is. and they let me in.
It's like internet security is like a fence door with no fence around it. You just,
No, I think I said yes, busted or something like that, and 2 minutes later I'm in the group. Now, as a group, these therapists commonly distort and deny the widely accepted mainstream research that indicates their theories on memory are unsupported or contradict the best available studies. They treat patients with methods proven to be capable of producing false memories, including hypnosis, guided imagery, regression therapy, and more, sometimes without informed consent. They provoke conspiracy narratives that lack reliably sourced corroborative evidence. They insist that any skepticism directed at their beliefs constitutes an attack on victims, denial of all sorts of abuse, and or an attempt to protect the perpetrators. They also provide a veneer of respectability by publishing in fringe outlets and peer reviewing each other's work, like, the STD group. I was hoping there'd be laughs.
No. You typed amen 10 times, maybe.
That's right. Just have to forward it 2 more times. Conspiracy theorists often incorporate additional forms of pseudoscience, discredited therapies, and controversial diagnosis, while generally overlooking or minimizing the very real problems that cause the patient to seek treatment in the first place. For example, a patient presenting with anxiety or depression may be told that their symptoms are a result of repressed memories of trauma of which the patient had no recollection. They practice at all levels, from social workers to psychiatrists, and in all branches of the mental health profession. Many specialize in the treatment of trauma, dissociative disorders, and eating disorders. Their motivations are largely unknowable, just like we were talking about. Mm-hmm. They really are. They're largely unknowable and quite frankly irrelevant. Bottom line is they're fucking doing it. Even if their intentions are good, the effect of their actions on vulnerable patients and their families is often devastating, life-ruining, imprisoning, murderous. I added those last few words myself just for a dramatic effect, but it's the truth. Mm-hmm. So that kind of wraps up what a conspiracy therapist is. And again, everything that we're saying is directly from grafeaction.org. There is a section on here that says, who are the conspiracy therapists? You're going to see some familiar mainstream names on here, like Neil Brick, Lawrence Pasder, Frank Putnam, Ted Gunderson. Oh, Ted Gunderson getting shot twice with a laser gun. Fuck you, Ted Gunderson. Ellen Lachter, we mentioned her, and a bunch of other tards that I don't even want to say their names out loud. Do your research, though, and find out who these people are, avoid them like the plague, and read some interesting stories that hopefully will help, I guess not personify, but help drive the point home of what Grafe Action is here to do.
Hail Satan!
All right, and before we wrap up, I was thinking, since we were doing jokes earlier, I have one last satanic themed joke for everybody here.
Oh, goody.
All right. Are you ready?
Always.
Bring it.
QAnon.
That's probably the best one of them all.
Yeah, QAnon. So our final joke of the evening, and unfortunately, as all of you, here in Study Hall and listening around the world may know, QAnon is not a joke, as much as it may sound like one. So we're not saying goodbye to the Grafe Action website just yet. They just posted a QAnon section on their site, and we're going to refer to that with just a little bit of commentary. I'm not breathing too much. We are not breathing too much life into this bullshit. But this is important, that people who may have had their head in the sand or may have a false idea of what this really is understand what's going on with QAnon. So quoting right from grafeaction.org, QAnon is a far-right conspiracy theory that posits that an anonymous military intelligence agent by the name of Q is using anonymous forums to reveal to the public that Donald Trump is engaging in a shadow war with a secret cabal of Satan-worshipping pedophiles and child killers. QAnon began posting on 4chan in October 2017, before moving to 8chan, which is now 8kun. These image boards are largely uncensored and anonymous, allowing rampant
anti-Semitism, racism, and homicidal ideation.
Several mass shootings in recent years have included manifestos posted on 8chan.
by utilizing code words and cryptic language, which are in fact
just gibberish,
open to interpretation by anyone that wishes to play spy. QAnon is in essence an
alternative reality game
that has expanded its reach from the bowels of the internet to social media, public events, and even Congress. Aided by unregulated social media algorithms that present people with increasingly unhinged and emotional content with no anchor to reality, QAnon has managed to envelop potentially millions into its bizarre cult-like narrative. As a result, it has destroyed lives, torn families apart, and is accelerating a form of political polarization that threatens to undermine democracy itself.
So, QAnon's beliefs. It is important to recognize that QAnon is
another form of the centuries-old blood libel myth
used to target Jews and other societal outgroups throughout history. Moreover, it's a rehashing of the long-debunked satanic ritual abuse moral panic that arose during the 80s and 90s. During this period, typically referred to as the Satanic Panic, and our listeners better be well aware of what the Satanic Panic is by now.
They better be.
There was widespread belief that a large, ubiquitous satanic cult was abducting and abusing people in bizarre rituals that featured infant sacrifices, cannibalism, horrific sexual abuse, bestiality, and more. Although families were torn apart and innocent people were sent to jail, every
systematic investigation
into the ritual abuse phenomenon has turned up zero evidence that such cults even exist. Unfortunately, many people continue to believe that satanic ritual abuse is a real thing.
Having grown out of the same vein as the
previously debunked Pizzagate conspiracy theory,
QAnon followers believe that President Trump is fighting against a corrupt, democratic, satanic organization, often dubbed the Deep State, that controls culture and politics at the highest levels. They believe the secret society made out of celebrities, politicians, and other prominent figures such as Beyonce, Hillary Clinton,
Tom Hanks,
and Bill Gates run a massive human trafficking operation for the purpose of extracting
adrenochrome.
What the fuck?
From children for use as a drug to promote youth and beauty. QAnon followers believe the drug, an oxidative metabolite of
adrenaline, brother,
is extracted from tortured and sexually abused children subjected to bizarre satanic rituals. QAnon has harmed legitimate anti-human trafficking efforts, including by hijacking the Save the Children movement, flooding hotlines with false leads, and perpetuating false information about the reality of human trafficking.
It is also important to recognize that QAnon beliefs, like many conspiracy theories, are constantly evolving. Now we're going to quickly look at why do people believe in conspiracy theories like QAnon. Conspiracies do happen. Governments lie, corporations cover up their misdeeds, blah, 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 blah. I mean, shit happens. We get it. Some of the things that people believe in do have some validity to them, but not in this case. And unfortunately, some people latch onto this reality to promote hypotheses and theories about world events that are untethered from reality. Some like to think of themselves as rogue investigators poised to unveil the great evils plaguing humanity, armed with a social media account and a YouTube channel. Some of them gain a significant following of people who similarly believe that they're in a club of heroes preparing to save the world.
The reality is that conspiracies are uncovered by well-funded reporters and government watchdogs, not random citizens lacking expertise in the relevant field.
Decades of
psychological research
reveal that people who buy into conspiracy theories demonstrate a
need to feel unique, need for certainty, rejection of authoritative accounts of events, hypersensitive agency detection system, reduced analytical thinking.
Thanks, nerd.
Yeah. Increased paranoia, lack of God, why can't I read this? Interpersonal trust.
I ran out of toner. I'm sorry.
Now you're just showing off.
And more.
I like somebody that they can read the big words.
In light of this research, belief in QAnon can be understood to reflect an individual's cognitive limitations and negative personality traits.
Can't they write these for dumb people like me who can actually read it?
Again, it's funny that you said that because we just read word from word, greatfaction.org. They have this is right off of their new QAnon section. And there's a shit ton more research to be done. If you're going to give this topic, it's unfortunate due diligence.
Which I'd like to thank them for putting out there. I don't know what you guys think about this, but delving into the QAnon portion, I was just kind of really confused. A part of me, can't really rule out the idea that the way Fox News and CNN are treating each other. I don't watch either, by the way, because I'm not trash, but you occasionally will come across what they're putting out, and you got to wonder, how much of this is fuel to a fire that people are really kind of enjoying its evolution, enjoying digging into, again, something that doesn't exist. And now we're seeing big media profit off of this conspiracy like we have in the past. And, that's really troubling, to know that there's got to be big names in both these media outlets that know this is absolute trash, and yet they still go at it. It's sad to think that this conspiracy's evolution will contribute to CNN's and Fox News's not only base but income.
No, I agree. And how much attention did the Wayfair bullshit get? And that was, under the umbrella of QAnon and all that bullshit. And we're recording this pre-election, and the fact that fucking Trump wouldn't denounce QAnon, he said he didn't know who they were.
Well, I didn't know who they were. I mean, to his defense a little bit there, looking into this, I was even like, what? I can't blame anybody for being confused about this, until we just read it off with Johnny's.
Yeah, he knows very well who these people are, or, I mean, not who fucking Q is, I'm saying. I mean, he very well could, but there's no way he was going to denounce that fan base and put that section of the vote at risk. And as we read, there's, potentially a million or more people that are buying into this shit, that truly believe in this, and all the attention they're taking away. And Veronica was the one that really opened my eyes to this, from, legitimate, issues, like the whole child trafficking thing. They're putting this under the umbrella, and that's their big claim to fame, is they're save the children.
Yeah.
Like, really? That's not their goal. That's, I know plenty of people like that individually that, fly under the radar under this, mask and, cover in front, look at me, this is what I'm doing, when meanwhile their ulterior motives are just fucking trash.
One could even say, I'm going to put my conspiracy cap on, but I don't know, could something that crops up in the news this much with a vengeance, could this be being used to cover up actual billionaire sex trafficking scandals like Epstein's right now, who, that story's kind of...
Yeah, I'm disappointed. I just read about that in the news too. And what's her, Giselle Maxwell? Giselle. Is that her name, or Giselle?
It's Ghislaine.
Giselle.
No, I call her Giselle.
I think it's Ghislaine.
No, Ghislaine. Well, she's Giselle to me. Fucking Giselle.
I like Bill's better.
Yeah,
I'm going to go with his fake news.
They didn't learn anything from her testimony, and that whole shit with the judge from Jersey, that was a mess. Just like QAnon, it's a fucking mess.
The one thing that surprised me is, people believe what they're going to believe, but, I referred to it as horse shit one time, and it's not because, it's not to be taken seriously, or because, people's lives haven't been harmed by this, but, in just reading the descriptions of some of these theories, it's just like bad fiction with a few, like, political and social buzzwords and the names of celebrities and politicians just thrown in there. I could write better conspiracy theories than half of this garbage that's out there. And not to say that, things like, sex trafficking or things like that aren't bad. They're horrible, but it's like, it's like really like you're just throwing all these random things together and saying there's this big conspiracy going on. It's like, where's the basis of any of it? Seriously.
And I mean, if you want, I think what we should and could and should end on is just because what I did notice about QAnon specifically, it's that it's kind of been assigned, people who have deep dived into it, they've assigned it like kind of a far right origin on the internet. And I did also watch that 2017 lecture from Greaves. And I have a quote from him right now, which I think is, touching at the foundation of everything we've been saying. And he stands up and he says, Well, I'd like to be able to stand here and tell you that this is a problem of Christian counselors imposing a cosmic vision of Christ's own people against Satan. This is not the case. The Satanic Panic was able to take off because elements of the left and right were happy to come together to fight a non-existent threat. And just like Al was saying, it's, it is ludicrous. And QAnon is one thing that originated out of one place. But this is still, going past the 80s and 90s, it's still prevalent because all sides of different organizations with different motives are coming together to buy into it. If you scroll down again, that list of video, satanic ritual abuse survivor story testimony that I mentioned earlier on the Grey Factions outlets, you'll see various people. They're coming from Christian backgrounds. They're coming from far right backgrounds. They're coming from far left backgrounds too. It's a very diverse group of people who are buying into this. And I think just because, QAnon is in this case far right, it doesn't do us any good to kind of point at one particular political affiliation and go, yes, that's the source of where these crazy claims are coming. If you do more research, you'll definitely find that claims like this still do exist. They're still very prevalent, and they are all evolving. And that's what I think we need to come together, just like elements of the Christian, the atheist, the left and right come together to perpetuate these claims. We have to come together to discredit them.
Absolutely.
I'm voting for you for president.
That's right. That is why she is the valedictorian.
Yes. That was brilliant.
There's no other better way. Thank you, Veronica. That was beautiful. Thank you for participating and reading and following along here as we dove into greyfaction.org and just try to educate and bring to light some of the good things that they're doing. At the same time, highlight some of the fucked up shit that is going on and that is still going on in this world we live in. But to continue and not lose any of Veronica's momentum, we are headed right into our brand new segment, her brand new segment, your new favorite segment. Veronica's got a book review, and we're going to head right that direction. Y'all ready?
Oh, yeah.
All right, let's roll.
I just got a library book, and I'm so excited.
Hey, everybody. What can I say? I sure am glad you came my way. Let me take a minute or two, and I'll introduce a book to you. Let's go. Let's go.
Reading is fun for everyone.
Hail Satan.
Hail Satan indeed.
Indeed.
All right, guys. Thank you so much for giving me an outlet to ramble about my books and my reading life. I'm so excited, and I'm so excited to do this particular book because I think it is the perfect way to end our Satanic Panic Part 3. I think it's an awesome way to end the series. We're going to be touching on everything we've talked about in this past one and in the other two parts. So we are going to be talking about Dark Places by Gillian Flynn. If that name sounds familiar to you, yes, she is the author of Gone Girl. This was one of the books she wrote before Gone Girl took off. So I'm excited. Dark Places. In the Midwest winter of 1985, the Kinnicky, Kansas Satanic Farmhouse Massacre horrifies the nation. The mutilated bodies of Patty Day, along with two of her children, are found scattered around their family home, in a mess of blood, destruction, and chaotic satanic imagery painted all over the walls. Patty's son and eldest child, Ben, is immediately singled out for the crime and promptly sentenced to life in prison, while Patty's youngest daughter and sole survivor of that awful night is left to stumble through a lonely life of pain, fury, and self-destruction. 24 years later, a now grown Libby Day encounters a team of amateur investigators who possess some different ideas about the case and assist her in tracking down strange characters from the past whose names and activities never made it into the courtroom. In this harrowingly written murder mystery by Gillian Flynn, we follow Libby as she resubmerges herself in the gory details of her family's murder while uncovering many dark and bizarre facets of the 1980s Satanic Panic. All right, it's a deep one.
Libby's already got my attention.
She does from page 1, and I'm going to talk about it. The book was published by Shea Earhart Books in 2009, made the New York Times bestseller list for hardcover fiction, as well as received a nomination for Dark Scribe Magazine's Black Quill Award in the category of dark genre novel. And I believe it then went on to actually win that award. So definitely didn't blow up the way Gone Girl did when, it first came out, but I am happy to see that it got its accolades. I have a pretty interesting background with this book. I avoided Gone Girl when it came out like the plague. It was just too mainstream for me. It blew out too quick. The movie came out very soon, and it was a good movie. I eventually did see it. But I refused to read the book for a long time. I was kind of perusing the shelves of a Goodwill, as I, am sometimes known to do. I love
doing that, not to interrupt. That's one of my most favorite things to do. Now, that's how I found a book called The Celestine Prophecy, like years and years and years ago. It was one of my first.
That title has my attention.
Yes, by he's James Redfield. There's 3 of them, but it's some Peruvian manuscripts found, and it's crazy. But no, Goodwill. I highly recommend that to our listeners. Like, I know we're in COVID, but if your local Goodwill is open, or even just a local bookstore, go browse. It's so much fun. But anyways, that's my spiel.
No, I totally agree. And I encourage everybody to do the same exact thing. So, I'm in the Goodwill, I'm poking around the book section, and I see a familiar name of an author, that I've never read. I pull it out. It's Dark Places. It's by Flynn. It is not Gone Girl. And I'm like kind of rolling my eyes. But I flip it over and I read the blurb, and something that stood out to me immediately were these 3 words, in a certain order. And those 3 words were Satanic Farmhouse Massacre.
Oh, yeah, that's captivating.
And I was like, "Ooh, I'm sold. I'm going to buy this book."
Plus, it was also probably like $1, right?
2.
Okay, perfect.
Yeah,
right
pretty
in
close.
Ballpark range. Perfect.
So I purchase this book, and I think it's important to note that at this point, I don't know very much about the Satanic Panic. The baseline that I know is that Manson was blamed for Columbine, and, people that I knew in my life had mentioned it in passing. I had no idea at the time of buying this book. I was not as educated as I am now, not even close. It is safe to say that this book was my introduction to the Satanic Panic, and I found it pretty thorough, actually. And it definitely pushed me to found out what I later was called the Grey Faction, discover what I later was called the Grey Faction, and meet you guys, and harass you with my annoying questions to see what you all knew. What stands out about this book? The sensory reading experience. For anybody who's read Flynn, you can kind of see when Gone Girl took off, why it took off. It's a very sensory reading experience. If a tone is dark and miserable, you can taste, smell, see, and feel every grimy surface in that dark environment. You can hear the characters talk and argue with each other. You can pick up just really, scary traits about them easily through their actions and through, how they present themselves, what they're wearing, what they smell like to other characters, what they're saying, the depth of what they're saying. And she really paints when she writes. It is really beautiful, and in this case, terrifying. She's very raw. Again, this is not in a particularly glamorous area of the country. You're not dealing with glamorous people, and they become real to you. It's awesome. Another thing that I liked very personally is blunt class consciousness. And relating it back to the Satanic Panic, you can see how an impoverished family and an impoverished kid specifically is going to be more of a target. Without giving too much away about the book, but you can see what people, particularly living in poverty, how the odds are going to be against them if they're ever in legal trouble.
Yeah,
exactly.
Just right off the bat,
yes.
Stack against them.
And it's going to show you about how certain people in the community, because of their wealth and standing and background in the community, if they point their finger at somebody or something for anything, how the benefit of the doubt is going to lean in their direction automatically, even without it being necessarily deserved. It's a really great juxtaposition because it puts characters like that, next to each other and in situations with each other. Whether it's, somebody impoverished is dating somebody who doesn't have a care in the world, whether, they're friends, whether a kid is trying to impress another kid who has all these resources. That's all covered in this. It's going to make you feel it. That's all I can really say. It's going to make you feel the depth of poverty. Going back to blunt class consciousness, the next thing is the Midwest setting. Just personally, again, I do not come from the Midwest. I have never been out, towards the Midwest. I don't have a lot of experience with what these farming families and what these farming communities have gone through. And this book definitely, I believe Flynn is from the Midwest, grew up there. It's a deep dive pretty much into in the 70s, 80s, and 90s, how the state really screwed over farming communities, and farms that had been in families for generations, went bankrupt almost overnight because of state policy. So I just thought that was a really interesting, setting for this. And I learned a lot. I like that. One of the best things about this, in my opinion, is the rare point of view. It is from a survivor's point of view, without giving too much away. I mean, it's on the back of the book, but there is a gruesome murder that takes place in a farmhouse, and the sole surviving child of this murder, it's, a fast forward into her life is what we're getting. She is the narrator and the main protagonist, and it's mainly from her point of view. It's from a couple points of view, but mainly hers. And if you've ever wondered, just personally, just something that I don't think has had enough attention thrown its way, the siblings of just the victims of the West Memphis Three, Christopher Byers, Michael Moore, Stephen Branch, what their siblings, must have had to experience going forward in their lives. And
they lost like their other half growing up.
Yeah, exactly. And on that same note, just because somebody in this protagonist's family is being accused of this crime, also, what did the siblings of Eccles, Baldwin, and Miss Kelly, what did their little siblings go through for the rest of their lives? So this book is from the point of view of a character who is, not the convicted, not the defense, not the prosecution, not the volunteer team that, comes forward to try to get the conviction overturned. It is from a child who had to grow up with this, basically, and what her life was like, and her revisiting all these elements of the crime when she goes back to do her own sort of little investigation.
Now, is in any way, anywhere in this book, is there like any therapy journeys? For
her personally, because that does tie into my next point.
Oh, okay. I might be jumping the gun here.
I will say, not therapy on her end. She does talk a little bit about her experiences in therapy. None of them are particularly awesome. As you can imagine, it's a lot of trauma, but that's also what I love. This book presents, it's a raw representation of trauma and mental illness.
Right.
So it is this girl who loses her entire family in an extremely bloody way and is made to think and believe, and to her knowledge, all evidence points to another member of her family doing it. So she is utterly alone, and she is unlikable. The first couple of pages, you're flipping through them, and you're like, this is a miserable, sad person, and you're not sure if you're on her side. But you kind of like how honest she's being, just through her voice. She's very honest about how lazy, how hateful she is, how she wants, not like revenge on the world, but a type of revenge. She's very entitled because of her victimhood, and still kind of hates the fact that she doesn't have the maturity to overcome this hate. And she's running out of excuses. She's sitting there in her early 30s, and she's looking at this house that she rents, and it's, pretty dilapidated by her standards. And she's alone with her cat, and she really has no real friends, no family. I think it's an accountant who's willing to help her budget her abundance of donation money that she's received out of, national pity throughout the course of her childhood. She's out of money, she's out of time. She really had all the passion sucked out of her after this crime, as you can imagine. And now she's got to figure out a plan. And that, I think, kind of, begins her journey, her struggling with her own demons, her own mental illness, growing as a person and then pushing herself out of this comfort zone. I think it's also important to mention in her childhood, or, from the time this murder took place to the time, we're reading the book, she doesn't really look back on this case much. It's too painful, as anybody
Absolutely.
can imagine. Your mother and your sisters are dead, and, your childhood house is taken away from you, and you have to go live with family members who don't necessarily want you, you're not close to, or, a series of foster care parents.
And they don't have your best interest at heart.
Exactly. And you've never gotten, she does, so to your question, she does talk about her therapeutic experiences a little. We just don't know that much detail about them. We know that they weren't good, and they certainly weren't enough to pick her up from the spot she is when this book begins.
Right.
Yeah. So, and that also leads into consistent and intensely unlikable character. She is not the only unlikable character in this book by any stretch of the means. You're going to meet a lot of really evil people. I was impressed by the level of just unlikability that Flynn, put into these characters, and the level of thought. People who aren't and are involved with this murder, you're dealing with.
I don't mean to interrupt this wonderful book review with my stupidity, but I just have a quick question about the other cast of characters. Does the author go into their backstories as well?
Yeah, so that is another kind of cool element, and it may not be everybody's cup of tea. Outside of Libby's point of view, there are two other point of views that actually flash backward all the way back to 1985, which is when the murder takes place, and that is from the point of view of her mother and of her brother, who was later convicted of the crime. So you do get to see the pictures of life of what her mom, as a single mom of 4 kids and a farm to take care of, is going through. You're seeing what her brother, a 15-year-old, high schooler living in basically Midwest farm poverty, is going through. And again, it's something that people lean either way on. Some people are not fond of flashbacks. In this case, I think that they were needed. It really helps paint the entire picture. It is, the main point of view is from Libby, this is current day. We're going through her own investigation with her after these murders have taken place. So to me, it was cool to go back to 1985 and see just what was going on her mother and her brother's side and her brother's friend's side, and the dealings that some of her mother had with some other mysterious and sinister characters. It was all really, not just deep and full of depth, but, it was scary. That ties into, consistently unlikable characters. I don't think there's one particularly even close to perfect character in this book. There's a lot of sinister people, who I think everyone is going to thoroughly enjoy.
Yeah, it sounds amazing.
And I think you helped me, wrap that up a little bit. I'm just gonna, I think, finish here on the last point, which is relevance to Satanic Panic and the relevance to Satanic Panic education. At its core, it's a Satanic Panic novel, and it's very well written. The McMartin trial is referenced several times by several different parties. In this group, it's part of what helps Libby receive her own education on the Satanic Panic is people bringing up the McMartin trial, so it does come up. And it goes over all the important aspects of the panic that we've touched on. Community hysteria surrounding Satanists, kind of the fun that they get out of just assigning, these crimes automatically to the idea of Satan and what, their own idea of Satan is. The fact that it was so in fashion and it just happened to, be that way at that time. Impoverished outcasts who look different and listen to different music being singled out. That's definitely a big part of this book. It's actually a little bit, cool if, you're educated on West Memphis, you can actually pick out similarities between Ben Day, who is the brother, and, similarities between the way he's written and elements of, Eccles and Baldwin's teenage presentations that went on to get them, suspected of that crime. Child testimony coercion, big part of it. You don't necessarily see any scenes with child coercion while they're giving the testimonies, but it is touched on a lot. It's a big part of this fictional case. And it was definitely my first introduction into like the idea. I thought to myself, like, child coercion? Like, what do you mean? You know, like, what does that mean? It pushed me to look into it a lot more, and how prevalent it was and how prevalent it still is during these cases. Corrupt psychologists, really cool part, again, that goes along with the coercion. And, you know, you do end up finding out that there was this one particular psychiatrist involved in this case. And whereas the child was made to believe through manipulation that this psychiatrist was, you know, a really good, trustworthy individual.
Oh, so she really keeps it real.
Yeah.
She really does.
Yeah, it's crazy.
So what was your biggest takeaway from the book? I mean, how did it impact you personally? How did it make you feel? And
how did it make me feel? I mean, it made me question it. It made me realize that there's not always a, you know, there is, just because you are a victim of something heinous does not give you the right to not, and just because you're so set in that mindset and so set on the way a story was presented to you, you know, it's really not an excuse to not eventually seek treatment and, you know, go on your own journey and find out the truth. It really has, like, you know, your pursuit of truth. That's what I got out of it. And that's why I went on to investigate, you know, everything the Gray Faction covers. So much of over the course of the last few months. It's, you know, no matter even if it's something you don't want to hear, and even though, you know, in Libby's case, you're in a lot of pain, you know, don't stop for anybody, you know, in your pursuit of truth. And, you know, just going off of that too, she meets a lot of passionate groups. There's like again, like we saw in West Memphis 3, a very passionate group of people who come together to revisit the case and pull every detail you can fathom and reconstruct a defense. And Libby ends up, you know, being a part of that. She doesn't think at first that, you know, it's ever going to be possible. But, you know, and another cool thing is in Libby's case, you know, she meets a journalist on this, you know, little investigation trip she's going on, who's actually kind of willing to come to terms with, you know, the level of coverage that they did several decades later, and the fact that the way that their publications exploded may not have helped everybody in the most favorable way. So she does get to have that conversation with a specific journalist about that case, and I think that conversation was really, really good. It was a short portion of the entire book, but I think that conversation was really enlightening, and it gave a pretty cool summary of the Satanic Panic. So just that her character conversation with that journalist alone is what pushed me further into doing my own real life research. And a lack of courtroom evidence that, you know, is kind of ties into the fact that this is also a murder mystery. If you like true crime podcasts or any kind of mystery genre, I think you'll really, really like this book, because it, you know, delves into specific courtroom evidence. What was there, what was not there. There is a lot of that. There's a lot of technical legal language on top of just really illustrative writing. That I think people who are fans of a lot of different genres are really going to like if you pick this up and finish it. And maybe, just maybe, there's a little bit of satanic ritual activity that goes on in this book. Just maybe.
Lyle's excited.
He's sold.
Absolutely.
I'm sold.
I'm sold too.
But I don't know. There may not be. I don't know. You're going to have to look it up and read it.
Cliffhanger.
I'm
adding this to my library.
For yourself. And that is Dark Places by Gillian Flynn. Again, if you're willing to learn anything more about the subject matter, I think, you know, though it is fictional, there are highly realistic elements in it that have been consistent throughout these last, what are we going on, 4 or 5 decades of Satanic Panic?
Yep.
Yeah. Please read it. It is awesome. Read Gone Girl. I think Gillian Flynn definitely deserves all of the praises she has gotten as a writer thus far in her career. I loved it. It's one of the best books I've read this year.
So we're going to do, yes, absolutely. I know I personally give your book review 5 pentagrams, but let's do the whole pentagram rating. So if we're going to rate this book, how many pentagrams would you give?
4.5 pentagrams.
4.5 pentagrams. All right. Well, that is the official new record to beat, the inaugural book review. So the next one, we'll see what happens. But 4.5 out of 5 pentagrams. And of course, 5 pentagrams for you, Veronica. Thank you so much.
Yes,
that was
definitely.
fucking
Great job.
awesome.
Thank you for letting me nerd ramble about dark places.
Hit us up. If you're in the goat farm, interact with us. We can talk about this. Veronica's in there. Johnny's in there. Al's in there. I'm in there. Dennis is in there. All of our awesome, super participatory patrons, Alex, Darren, Manaz, and Kat, and, Al, who's, here now. Jump on. Let's continue the conversation and let us know what you think. So once again, thank you, Veronica. We are going to quickly dive through social media. Patreon has been pretty still since the last time we recorded. So big shout out to all of our VIP patrons. You know who you are. We are going to shout out how to get in touch with us on social media real quick, just to remind you. Outside of the Goat Farm, you can find us on Facebook at Satanic Study Hall. Just look up Satanic Study Hall. You will find us. We talked about the Goat Farm, but if you're looking it up on Facebook, that is Satanic Study Hall presents the Goat Farm. Instagram, we are at Satanic Study Hall. Twitter, which I am having so much fun with. Dennis got me fucking addicted, and I don't know, the Twitter game has been fantastic. Shout out to the Proper Order of Doug's. Hashtag prosecute Chuck Norris. Yeah, we're having a lot of fun on there. We are at Satanic SH. That is capital S for Satanic, and then a capital S, and then H. It does make a difference, apparently. And Patreon. Patreon.com/Satanic Study Hall is where you can check us out and consider supporting the podcast. We fucking love you all, number one, but our patrons are a special group of people, and they're growing. We just hit 30, so there is one shout out that I'll make an exception, and that is to Glow. Good looking out, Glow. Glow was number 30, and that is something to fucking celebrate.
Yes, thank you very much.
If I had some hand clapping and cheering and everything on my soundboard, we'll fill it in. Yes, thank you. Thank you, Glow. I do need to get some more audio on this soundboard and get it popping. So that social media aside, we are going to say goodbye. But before we do that, we are ending on a video which is available on Grey Faction. It came out on April 30th, 2020 of this year. This is Hexanock's 2020 video. A video that Lucian and the Temple put out. It says editing and music were by Nick Ramsey. And it says for more information, you can reach out to D. Corridian Hammond. And there's a website on Grey Faction in the resources page. So in a nutshell, Hexanock is an occasion that honors those who fell victim to superstition and pseudoscience, whether by witch hunt, satanic panic, or other injustice. The history of Hexanock Walpurgis night is known as the eve of the Christian feast day of Saint Walpurga. And that is April 30th is when the Satanic Temple celebrates Hexanock. This video, I feel, is an absolutely fantastic way to wrap up this long series that we've dove into in the Satanic Panic. And before I play that, Johnny, I want to thank you. Thank you so much from, the 90s Manson reviews to all the research that you did with the cases and listening to all the psychobabble bullshit as we recorded. Same thing to Dennis. Dennis put a shit ton of fucking work and effort into research and got super invested and passionate about the things that he learned. Veronica, right, moving on to the table. Everything that you've contributed, like you, not only did you come just to say hi, but you came in like a hurricane. You came in and tore shit up, and I love it. I had a lot of fun over the course of these 3-4 episodes that we've spent on this. And father Al, what are we going with?
You can call me Al.
You can call me. I won't do it to you. I will call you Al. And thank you for being here too. We got a good thing going here at Satanic Study Hall. Lots of good stuff on the horizon. And once again, before we play this, I wanted to thank all of our listeners. Thank you all. This has been so much fun so far. And I'm not going to say the sky's the limit, but the sky's the fucking limit. Like, we're having a blast. And this is becoming much more than a podcast. And that is because of everybody who lets us borrow their ears for a few hours a week.
Definitely.
So on that note, I will cue our microphones down and turn the audio up.
And then their children started making allegations as well, right?
I don't think they started making allegations. I think they were coerced into making allegations.
By whom?
Their parents that were taking them to psychologists. I think the psychologists coerce them into thinking and saying things because the child's not going to say something that didn't happen. The child's going to listen to who's talking and the
therapy damaged the father and awarded him $500,000.
Jan Downing of Newbury, Massachusetts says her therapist did anything but heal.
Who say they've been falsely accused by children in their 30s and 40s who didn't remember the abuse until they went to a therapist. There are now more than 3,000 of these families.
Hexanacht. Today we remember all the victims of superstition and pseudoscience, subjected to witch hunts, satanic panic hysteria, and other brutal injustices. We remember those murdered for their alleged or actual belief in alternative religions, or no religion at all. We remember the accused witches burned at the stake. We remember those martyred for daring to espouse scientific truths and offend the godly. We remember those ostracized for exposing pseudoscience. We remember the enduring damage of the ongoing satanic panic. We remember the exploited children pressured to falsely incriminate their parents. May it never happen again. We remember the trauma of psychiatric patients drugged and manipulated into believing themselves victims of an elaborate cult conspiracy. May it never happen again.
May it never happen again.
We remember the falsely accused, the innocents imprisoned for decades, some still languishing behind bars. May it never happen again.
May it never happen again.
Families destroyed by recovered memory pseudoscience. Fathers missing weddings. Mothers deprived of grandchildren. Grown-up sons and daughters racked with guilt, struggling to reconnect with the parents they accused. May it never happen again.
May it never happen again.
Most importantly, we remember the fight continues. May the satanic panic end once and for all. Hail Satan.
Hail Satan.